The moon had seen this town before anyone thought it mattered. Long before its name appeared on any royal map, before its church bells learned to measure time, before its streets were paved with stone instead of fear, the moon had already memorized its shape. From above, it looked like a quiet knot tied along a river, small, unimportant, and easy to forget. And yet, on certain nights in the early 14th century, the moon lingered longer over this place than over castles or capitals, as if it sensed that history sometimes hides where no more one is looking. The town was called Ravenford, a modest settlement in northern England, resting between marshland and the low wooded hills. In the year 1315, Ravenford slept early. It had tea. Darkness was not romantic, then it was dangerous. Wolves still prowled the outskirts, roads vanished after sunset, and a single candle was worth more than a poor man's supper. On one such night, the moon rose pale and swollen, pushing through thin clouds like a witness reluctant to look away. Below, Ravenford breathed in its sleep. Smoke drifted lazily from hearths. A dog barked once and then fell silent. Inside timber-framed houses, families lay close together, listening to the wind press against shutters. The town seemed peaceful, almost frozen in time. But history, like the moon, rarely announces itself when it arrives. In the center of Ravenford stood Street, Aldwyn's church, its stone walls already scarred by decades of rain and neglect. The church tower cast a long shadow across the square, cutting the moonlight into sharp angles. Near its steps, a lone figure moved carefully, as if afraid to wake the night itself. His name was Thomas of Ravenford, and he was not meant to matter. He was not a knight, not a noble, not even a merchant with influence. He was a clerk, one of the few men in town who could read, write, and keep records for the local lord. His hands were stained with ink more often than blood, and his future, by medieval standards, should have been predictable: a quiet life, a quiet death, and no more one beyond Ravenford remembering his name. Yet on this night, under the same moon that watched kings fall and the kingdoms burn, Thomas carried something dangerous beneath his cloak. A parchment. It was not large, but it held the weight of treason. Thomas paused at the church door and he looked up. The moonlight struck his face fully now, revealing tired eyes and the unmistakable look of a man who had not slept properly in weeks. He whispered a short prayer, not for protection, but for forgiveness, then slipped inside. The church smelled of cold stone and the old wax. Moonlight filtered through narrow windows, painting polybands across the floor. At the far end, near the altar, another figure waited. Father Aldrich was older than the church itself seemed. His back bent not only with age but with knowledge gained from decades of listening to confessions no Mormon should have had to carry alone. When he saw Thomas, he did not smile. "You should not have come," Aldrich sighed quietly. "He had no more choice," Thomas replied, his voice barely above the echoing silence. "If he keep this, he die. If he destroy it, others die." The parchment emerged from beneath the cloak like a living thing. Aldrich's eyes narrowed as he recognized the seal pressed into the wax, a mark used only by royal messengers. "This was never meant to reach Ravenford," Aldrich sighed. "No more," Thomas answered. But the messenger drowned crossing the river. The moon was high that night too. Outside, the moon drifted higher, as if leaning closer. The parchment contained orders issued in the name of King Edward II, though whether the king himself understood their full meaning was uncertain. England at the time was weak, fractured by famine, drained by war with Scotland, and ruled by a monarch whose authority was increasingly questioned by his own nobles. The orders spoke of grain seizure, every sack, every reserva, not only from cities, but from villages like Ravenford, places that had already suffered from failed harvests and the relentless rain. The Great Famine had begun the year before, and the hunger was no longer a distant rumor. It lived in hollow cheeks and the shallow graves. If the order was carried out, Ravenford would not survive the winter. Father Aldrich closed his eyes. "This will kill them," he sighed. Thomas nodded. "You know. What you suggest," Aldrich continued slowly, "is rebellion." "No more," Thomas replied. "It is mercy." Beyond the church walls, Ravenford slept, unaware that its fate now balanced on the conscience of two men standing in cold moonlight. At dawn, The town would wake to the same routines: women baking coarse bread, men checking traps, children chasing each other through mud. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, please consider liking and subscribing for more stories.